Hi, everybody. Ah! Bonjour, bonjour. Ça va, ça va. Hi, everyone. So wonderful to be back in Paris in this very well air-conditioned room. This is like the best place, best spot in the house. You're welcome. So what I wanted to do to kind of celebrate my, what is it now? My 4th ECC. It's been a while. I'm definitely more tired than I was at the first one. I'm definitely wiser. But yes, let us have a chat about nature. And going back to nature, I think that's probably what happens when you have spent this long in crypto. You kind of go, let's kind of take pause and refocus. So, biomimicry and DAOs, fun times. There's loads of foliage, so it will be nice and regenerative for us all. One of the main things that we kind of tend to forget as we get so into our technology, which is amazing and it is wonderful and we love it so, is that nature kind of has a massive head start in research and development, and particularly in figuring out how systems work and particularly how networks maintain a balance and continue thriving. And we forget that because we tend to get a little bit distracted with our own brilliance, which is brilliant, but sometimes we kind of, again, need to take a little bit of a pause. Biomimicry, what is it? It's that. It's essentially looking at nature and seeing what is there to be potentially emulated, potentially learned from when solving complex human problems. And we can kind of all agree that we humans have many problems at this stage, particularly in the economic, social dynamic. And now, what are DAOs? We know what they are, but one of the things that they kind of don't tell you in the brochure is that because they are networks of humans organizing around a specific purpose and all of that jazz, they are incredibly difficult to figure out. And they are incredibly difficult to essentially ensure that they actually work. Like, we love them, they're very buzzy, and everyone wants to be one and everybody wants to be part of one, but when you're in it, you kind of figure out, hey, this is like hard. Remember how I said I was tired? That's why I'm tired. It's hard. So that was biomimicry. This is DAOs. Now, what tends to happen, and this is the parallel there from, our lovely DAO environment to the actual environment, is that there's a lot of complex flow networks in nature. And as we saw, DAOs are networks of humans. And so what you get in nature is that in these complex flow networks, you have these connections between components, humans or nodes, and the interactions and activities that happen within and between those nodes and those components, right? So very similar. I think we can all agree. Yes? Yes. And similar to DAOs, right, these interactions between the cells, between all of these different elements, are encoded in their DNA. They're encoded in this this set of rules. And so really what you have is a decentralized process of self-organization, because they all need to exist and to collaborate and to coordinate and to work together to make the broader organism, the broader network work. And so there's no main cell, there's no regulator cell that tells everybody, hey, you fall in line and you all do what I say. It is a flow, and it's a balance, and it's a work of coordination, because as we know, it's all about coordination. It always has been. And this is true. Huh? Pipe down, Kevin. So obviously, when we look at this, and because I don't really have all day, what we want to do when we look at DAOs and when we work within DAOs and when we're thinking about how we're redesigning these things and how we're building these new things, because it's a very exciting time, but at the same in the same vein, we must do it mindfully. I always say that, and I tend to, again, because I've been in this ecosystem for a while, I'm now like older and go, hey, we must be mindful, it's all about balance, but it's true, it is. And so the main things that we need to learn are how can we look at those complex flow networks in nature, and what can we replicate, what can we imitate, what can we repurpose, and also how can we be really good nodes within these networks that are DAOs, right? So here's what we can take from the network side of things. All nodes exist in clusters. And what happens within nature is these clusters basically have this communication inter and cross cluster dynamic. If we think about a DAO, you have, like, I'll take Gitcoin as an example, you have work streams. And how they interact and how they communicate with each other, and making sure that that flow is a positive one, is a flowing one, is very important. So taking that and seeing and looking at how they exist in the ecosystems in nature is a very important thing to keep in mind. Plasticity. Some parts will act faster than others, and that's okay. Not every cluster needs to be the same as the other. That is important. It is a work of balance. Some will be faster, some will be stronger. You have to have that dynamic and that balance between the two. And then you have the feedback loops, very important, and we sometimes forget about that. But you can have negative and positive feedback. What does that balance do? What does that do? It ensures balance. Because, for instance, as soon as something, let's say a species, goes way above what would be in balance, it needs to get some sort of action that keeps it in check. So that dynamic and those feedback loops, and again, they may be negative. We see this all the time with the budgets that are allocated, with the conversations that we have about resource allocation. And it's okay to not always have positive feedback. And we need to get comfortable with that. And it's also okay to not know. And it's also okay to be in the middle sometimes, to say maybe. That is also absolutely fine. We're not, we're kind of in a race, but like, sometimes we need to make sure that we make the right decisions versus the fast decisions. And then node mimicry, right? All of these cells and all of these humans and everything that exists within nature, uniqueness is important. Diversity breeds strength and resilience. If you think about a forest planted by humans, they're all in neat little rows. You know what happens to that? When there's a fire, it burns quicker because it's all in an orderly line. Think about think about a jungle. There's all sorts of different plants and trees and this and that and low and high and all of it. What would happen with fire there? It would probably not blaze through as quickly as it does through orderly rows of trees. Think about that. Uniqueness and diversity is important for resilience. Coordination, again, is everything. Connecting and working together with other nodes, with the other elements. Let's, for once and for all, give up this whole thing of like, if I win, you lose, if blah, 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 like, whatever. Let's get along. And then balance strong and weak connections. Again, it is important to be comfortable with the fact that we will not all be best friends. It doesn't mean that we're not okay working together. I will have a stronger connection with somebody who I work with versus another. A work stream may have a stronger working connection with another, and for a multitude of reasons, slightly weaker with another. And that is okay, because you have that intensity. It makes the network robust. It understands, and it becomes something that is in balance. It becomes something that isn't pressurized, that isn't constantly at breaking point. And that is, again, something that we need to learn. Balance is important, and again, I say this time and time and time again because it is important. And it's also important to understand that it is not a static condition. We think about balance, we think about like the, something that is achieved and then it stays there, and then if you don't move and don't do anything, it maintains. Incorrect. It is an ongoing process of adjustments and fine, like, attunements. If you think you make one of those and then there's a gust of wind that comes, blows it down, and you're like, oh my God, what a tragedy. No, you start and you look and you make sure that you protect it and you adjust it and you work with it. But maintaining balance is incredibly important because the power is that in that engaged equilibrium. And what we see in DAOs is that everybody wants to be a part of one, but nobody, once they are, the engagement kind of like dies. And being engaged and making sure that you are participating to the state of balance is important, and you should be doing that. And if you're going to be part of this complex flow network that is a DAO, ensure it maintains this balance or help towards it. Be engaged, it's good. Now, another thing that I wanted to chat to you guys about, because I'm also conscious of time, but this is what happens in nature naturally. Every complex flow network, every ecosystem does this. You have resilience, which is a lot of diversity on one end of the spectrum, and efficiency. Like I said to you, I gave you the example of the forest earlier in neat little rows. That is streamlined. And they are at these opposing ends. They're part of the same thing, but they are these opposing ends. Where the magic happens is in the middle, which is, in nature, it's called the optimum window of viability. Now, what complex flow networks out there in nature do is they naturally achieve that. They naturally recalibrate themselves to the middle. Again, if some species is overrunning something, it gets it back in the middle. If something is way too efficient, it gets it back in the middle. Because everything is a work of balance. And we are part of this ecosystem. I don't mean the crypto one, but obviously also that. But we are part of a natural ecosystem. So therefore, naturally, we should also be searching for this window of optimum viability in what we do. Because what humans do, and we've seen this in so many economic crises, what do? If there's too much diversity, we go straight to efficiency. Completely bypass the middle. Austerity, anyone? When an economic crash happens, and we've had a lot around the world in the past, God knows how many years, we go straight to efficiency. And what efficiency does, excessive efficiency, makes systems brittle. And like I said before, that fire blazes through the whole thing because it is not resilient. There's nothing to stand in its way. And this is the process that we need to go through, which is an unlearning of this reflex that we have to always go for efficiency. Which usually is, we mainly do it because we've done it so many times before, and we're like, well, I guess that's what we should do. Why? Let's change it around. Let's be more mindful when we do this stuff. Because like, now's the time and we're all clever. So with biomimicry, again, one of the main, well, these are the main things to kind of think about is looking at systems out there and deciding what is there to emulate, what is the ethos, or what are the values, or what are the, I guess, the goals and the intents. And also, how do we reconnect with regenerative solutions that are out there? Because again, this whole world, the natural world, has been maintaining this for a very long time. And we cannot be so arrogant as to say we know better all of a sudden. I think we, again, should be a little bit more mindful, and particularly when we talk about regeneration. So some of the things that we can do that I've personally been pulling into the work that I do with Gitcoin, for instance, is introducing things like patterns, behaviors, habits. What that does is it brings a little bit of that streamlinedness into something that is resilient. It makes it a pattern that is easily recognizable. Again, look at nature, we have so many examples. It creates behaviors that we right now just do not have when it comes to DAOs. And it also creates habits. Habits, what they do is they remove the incredibly taxing dynamic of learning how to recognize things every single time you deal with them. Think if you had to wake up every morning and had to relearn to tie your shoelaces. Sometimes when you navigate proposals across different DAOs, it pretty much feels like that. You're like, wait, what are you doing here? What are you using? How is this? Pattern. Pattern is good. Behavior is good. Habit is good. But that is a little bit of efficiency that comes to meet the resilience and the diversity. Meet it, not walk all over it or eradicate it. Balance. And so this is a quote that I really like. It's Janine Benyus founded the Institute of Biomimicry. And this is basically so true, right? This is the only real model of regeneration that has worked for all of these years. And it's something that if we don't look to it to learn something, if we don't look to it to essentially have this chance to redesign things in a way that actually hopefully works versus recreating the crap that we've been trying to move away from. It takes being mindful, and it takes a little bit of humility, and also it takes just curiosity and looking at what's there that we can just bring into what we're all doing here, and hopefully it sticks. And hopefully we get to a point where we truly are enabling a regenerative dynamic moving forward. And I think that's it. I think the next slide is merci beaucoup. Yes. So there's about 5 minutes left if anybody had any questions that they wanted to ask. Let me know.
Hey, Simona.
Hi.
Great presentation. I actually really like the kind of the efficiency on one side and the resiliency on the other side.
Yeah.
What would be your recommendation to the DAOs? Like, maybe, I'm not sure if you can cover all DAOs as the ecosystem, but where do you think we are at the moment and what we should do to get into the middle?
So, for so long, particularly in DAO season, as we have been for a while, we were definitely on this side, right? Everybody's making one, everybody has resources to dish out, and we were dishing them out for everything. Great. It's okay for that to happen. But I think as we move through and as we have market fluctuations, the impulse that we have, and don't get me wrong, this is an impulse, it's not necessarily your fault, it's not our fault. We have been conditioned to get to this response of like, holy, mad, we need to tighten the purse strings because we're all not gonna make it. So we just go straight to efficiency, i.e. we stop spending completely, or we cut, or we do this, or we drop that, or we refocus, or we blah, because it's that panic response. And it's something that we have seen time and time again. Now again, it's hard to change something whilst you're so deep in another thing. Like we see this all the time. So all I would say is be mindful. Understand that through even looking at economies again around the world, efficiency and austerity do not work. You have to find the middle. What is the middle between dishing money out to everything and everybody versus not doing any of it? And that is a collective Conversation, that is something that you do together. Not somebody decides, this is it, we're putting a pin, like a plug, there's no more money. You have to have that conversation, and maybe those solutions come because of that conversation and interconnectivity and looking at the different patterns between the nodes and how they operate. It's just being mindful, that's it. And trying not to fall back on what we've always done.
Perfect. Yeah, I agree, and thank you for the answer. I think we should have more conversations, especially at these times.
Oh, I'm out of time. Quick one. I think we're good. Are we good? Okay. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy.